Hello, Celebrate Recovery and Love Sees Father family. Hope this video finds you doing well. So today I just wanted to come to you with a video about feeling alone. I know it's hard sometimes to not believe that you're not alone. It's shame and things that we go through in our lives make us feel like there can't be other people like us. Like it isolates us. It causes us to have, bad judgment and miserable lives because we're so busy hiding something that we don't even need to hide. Because the truth is that if we actually shed the thing that we feel is ugly with our group of people or with the people that we surround ourselves with, you'd find that some of them have the same experience and have been on the same journey as you. Or they have a family member that have, and they understand what you're saying to them. If you look at Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, 2 people are better than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is alone. There's nobody there to help them if they're injured. So the thing is that I felt like the Lord put on my heart that somebody with skin needed to share the stories of these ugly, terrible things that happen in our lives, but show that you can succeed, you can overcome, you can live an amazing, wonderful life. You just have to be willing to let the ugliness go, to let the power of the ugliness go, and realize that, the journey that you've had in life is no different than any other person's journey from the sense of the emotions attached. So for example, my journey of being, molested and things at the age of 5. And then maybe at 5, you lost your grandmother, and your grandmother meant everything to you. Well, at the age of 5, losing sexuality, losing control over what was being done to me, I felt abandoned. I felt mistreated. I felt sad. Well, when your grandmother dies, you can feel those same emotions where you're like, why did my grandmother have to die? She meant everything. Or feel sadness or isolate. So our journeys to those emotions are different, but the emotions are the same. And so you can always find common ground with another person based off of just the emotions, because we've all felt them. So what if I told you couldn't go through all these horrible, awful, terrible things you've gone through in life, and that at the end you can live the most beautiful, amazing, wonderful, purpose life, and that it can all happen for you, whether you start now, whether you start 5 minutes from now, whether you start next year, but it can all happen, and I have proof. The proof is his name's Jesus. And Jesus was born as a man. As a man, he had to learn how to walk. He had to learn how to talk. He had to learn how to go to the bathroom. He had to learn how to do a trade. He got, picked on by friends. He got teased. He got, we know that when he got to the point that he was leading people, the people from his own village were like, isn't that just the carpenter boy from down in the other village? So we know that he went through a lot of the things that he went through, everything we go through, okay? But the difference is, he decided to do ultimate sacrifice, and he gave himself in sacrifice for you. So he did one of the most horrific things anybody could do. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what you say. You couldn't have done what he did, and I couldn't have done what he did. Nobody could have. Because to be honest, the pure shock of the pain would have been enough to kill us instantly. And Jesus endured because he did it for us. So think about it this way. He decides he's going to have, the Lord says, well, I'm going to create a person. He decides to create you. And, he says, let's see how they go. Let's see how it goes. And Jesus is like, oh man, they're kind of messing up, not doing so good. And he says, well, I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice myself so that they may have life and have it more abundantly. Well, that's what he did, only he did it for all of us. There wasn't just one of us, it's all of us. And so Ecclesiastes saying that we are stronger in numbers. We're stronger when we have someone to help us. Think about one time in your life that you maybe had an accident, or you remember a time when you needed someone and they were there. Not an example when you needed someone and you were let down. An example when you needed someone and they were there. Think about that. Well, that can be you with your journey, with your story, with your testimony to other people. You can be the person for them that they need, and you're not going to let them down because you've been down that road and you understand the purpose. You understand the importance, the power of it. So the Lord had given me a vision at one point, and he says, that my life has kind of been like walking up a clay mountain. You know, the clay that you step in and it's real wet and it's sticky and you get stuck in it. Well, he showed me an image of me going up this clay mountain, and on my back I had a backpack full of rocks, and on all of the rocks there were different traumas like abuse, sex, addiction, all these different traumas. And as I was going up the hill, of course I was getting exhausted because I'm carrying these heavy rocks. And so I sit down, I'm like, I just need to rest, but then I'm just too tired. So I decide, well, I can take out this one rock, that's okay, I can leave that. So you take out the rock and then you go up a little further and you go, I'm tired again. And you go, well, I guess I could take this one rock off too. And before you know it, you're at the top of the hill and your backpack has a few rocks left, because we're not promised nothing bad in our life is ever going to happen. It's just manageable. So we have the rocks in our backpack, and we look back and we realize that there's somebody like us who's going on that same journey, only they have the backpack of rocks and they're at the bottom of the hill. You're at the top. You've walked through, you've let some rocks go along the way. They're at the bottom, and you say down to them, step on the rocks, it'll make it easier. You just realize that by letting traumas go, you have left a situation where you can now provide a stable points to help guide another person through the same journey you went through. So, the hardest thing in life is thinking and believing you're alone. And you need to stop believing the devil when he tells you you're alone, because you are not alone. He wants you to be isolated. He wants you to think that these ugly truths or secrets or traumas or things that you've been through, that they're, God forbid you should share them, because then people will judge you and not like you. And you know what? That is not the truth. The truth is, and I know because I am proof of that, it is humbling sitting down in front of thousands of people and saying, gee, in my addiction, I thought it was a really good idea to eat an entire cheesecake sitting on the floor of my bedroom with bottles of vodka all around me, and waking up in the morning and the cheesecake stuck to my head, and me getting up, wiping off just enough that I'm still drunk and I'm headed to go get more vodka because I'm still shaky and I need the shake to end, realizing I haven't looked in the mirror and who knows what I look like. And I walk through the door to order and they're kind of looking at me like, here you go, here's your drink. That's what, in our shame, that's the kinds of things that we envision people judging us on. So it is humbling, like I said, sharing my story. And it was a risk, but the Lord said, I need someone with skin to tell people and to show people that you can say some of the most horrific, awful things and you can be okay. You can make it. You can live a better life. And I will tell you, the first time actually, I told some of my story, I threw up almost instantly. I had to run into the hallway and start throwing up. I was in a group, and it's not an easy thing. But the weird thing was, as I shared it more and more, and I received more and more support. And even here's another example. My arms have scars on them from my suicide attempts. I can't hide them. They're very obvious and they're very deep, and I cut from wrist to elbow and to the bone, vertically and horizontally. They're not going away. And if I reach for something, people see my arms. And I can't tell you, I have had so many people say to me, whisper, come up to me and say, I have some of those too, but I've never told anybody before. And us get into a conversation about what happened in their life or what's still happening in their life right now that's causing them to do that. And then saying, you know what, let me hold your hand. Let's get through this. Let me show you what I did. Let me tell you what I did. And some of it's going to help you. And, you're going to find your own way, but you're going to have somebody to walk with you that's been up the hill, And so your scars, your testimony, you never know how many people you are going to help. You never know the impact of what your life will have on other people. It may shock you someday when you go to heaven and you find out how many people come up to you and say, I know you. I knew you when this. And you don't even realize that, and you know them, but you didn't realize you had an impact on their life. So again, Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, 2 people together are stronger than one isolated. So I'm going to be discussing, I'm a domestic violence survivor. October 31, 2014, I was left on the side of the road for dead, and I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary. I'm going to be discussing what my personal experience with it is, why you should get out, why you need to have the courage to get out if you are in that situation right now, because it doesn't get better. The very first time I was choked, I should have left. I should have said goodbye, because it doesn't get better. It escalates. It goes beyond. And then you can end up like me in the hospital, where your children have to see their mom, or your dad has to see their child bloodied and bruised and cut up and just terrible, broken bone, you don't want that. So if you are in that situation right now, we need to get you out of that. We need to get you some help. Hopefully this message will give you the courage and the strength to at least be curious that, is there a way out? How do I get out? Reach people in our community, domestic violence, and you'll find someone who's done the journey that I'm talking about. They've already laid the rocks. You just have to reach out, let them grab your hand, and step on the rocks. Step on those first rocks. So I know it's very hard to not think that you are not alone. I remember as a little girl, men started being inappropriate with me at the age of 5. My mom would use me sexually with men to get drugs or to get things. And I remember when these men were doing these things to me, and I was so young, I remember feeling, I was very isolated, obviously, spent many, many hours alone, dirty, hungry, just not a good situation. And I remember sitting there thinking, I have to be the only little girl on the planet that's having this happen to her. I have to be the only one that's going through this, because if other little girls were going through this, someone would come rescue us. Someone would come save us. This is my childlike thoughts on what was happening to me. And that led to me keeping secrets and protecting my abusers, like my mom. And it led to some very horrific life experiences and decisions and choices and depression, and a lifelong journey of keeping this sickness, this sick secret inside of me, just to fester and grow and grow and grow, instead of smashing it where it's at and standing up and saying, no, I'm not alone. But that's the whole point of all of this, is that you're not alone. And if I had known that, it could have changed my whole life. It could have changed every way that I've made a decision going forward. But I didn't, and I lived that journey. But now I can look at you and without a doubt tell you, you are not alone. And if you think you're alone, or you think that your secret is unique, I promise you that there are people in your group that you're hiding your secret from because you're afraid, that are hiding the same secret, or have a family member that's going through the same thing, or has gone through the same thing. And it's the weirdest thing with trauma and with experience. When you meet another person who has had that same trauma, a same experience as you, there is a bond that forms that is unexplainable. It is like you instantly understand each other on a level that only someone who had gone through what you'd gone through can understand. For example, as I got older, I realized there were other little girls who had been raped. There were sex slavery survivors. I realized that there were places I could go and I could speak about what happened to me, and that I would have hundreds of other people say, yes, but you know what? This is what I did when I was having that happen to me. This is what I did to help me get through that next step. And that power of laying the rocks and helping another person is such an incredible thing that it's going to become addicting, to be honest, because you are going to be so amazed at the release and the chain breaking and all of that you're going to feel as a result of not only sharing your story, but helping someone behind you or learning from someone who's in front of you that's a little further ahead than you are. But the most power is going to come from the release that you're going to feel on the inside. That you don't have to live this life this way anymore. You don't have to feel this way. You can live your best life. Jesus proved that. Jesus lived on the earth as a man, and he made it. And he had a much tougher struggle and journey than any one of us could possibly have had or understand or experience. So if he can do it, then we should know that we can do it. And to be honest, I was at the lowest, most ugly barrel point a human could possibly be at. I mean, I was known by all the hospitals, by all the police officers, by all the ambulance workers, because I was so lost and I was so sick and I was in such a bad place that I was between the suicides, between the addiction, between the depression, between the fear, of the person who tried to kill me coming back. All of these things were just bam, 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 till I imploded. And thankfully, I feel like the Lord gave me grace, because I didn't know the Bible. I didn't know all of the things the choices I were making. I didn't understand the consequences of those decisions. But you know what? Now I do. And since I know them now, then if there's someone else out there who's trying to commit suicide or doing things that I did, then that means I have the power to put a rock under their foot and help them. And how incredibly selfish of me would that be to not help somebody else? Guys, we got to be nice to each other. This world is about helping each other. This world is about each one teaching one. This world's about this. And until you can step out, and I promise, test it. Test me, test it. Grab someone you trust and just start telling them something that, start out with something small. Tell them. Because the way you think in your mind that they're going to react and the way they actually react are going to be different. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you courage to maybe go a little further. Courage to go a little further. Until next thing you know, your traumatic, your traumas and things, they start to lose power. And you start to be light, and you start to sleep well, and you start to laugh. You start to realize you have a sense of humor again. Or that you maybe didn't know you had a sense of humor because you've been isolated and so in such a sick place and sick mindset for so long that you didn't know. And now you're growing up, basically. It's like, who do you want to be when you grow up at 46 years old, which is where I'm at? I'm not sure yet. I'll tell you when I know. Just kidding. But I mean, you get to have an amazing, wonderful life, but it all begins with you, and it all begins with us being kind to each other. So the next time somebody has the courage to share something with you, then embrace them and show them that they're okay. And then if you have the strength or the courage to tell someone something, do it knowing that it's as much for you as it is for other people, because the healthier you get, the more you can be there for others. So guys, I'm just this was just really heavy on my heart today, because I just know how hard it is to feel shame, and I know how hard it is to feel alone, and I know how hard it is to feel weighed down by the ugliness of things that you don't need to feel weighed down by anymore. It's already been resolved on the cross. Everything's done. We are here for just a short period of time. And, I don't know about you, but I'd rather spend my time here taking what I've learned and helping others than being sick. Just me. I deserve a good life, and so do you. And you know what's crazy? I'm having a good life. I have amazing family. I have an amazing husband. All of the things that I isolated myself from are now here. I'm not isolated anymore. So now I'm married. So now I'm active in the community. So now I do all of these things. And man, it's so powerful. Here's one thing people always said to me, get a hobby. Well, in our mindset, our sick mindset, we're thinking crocheting or coloring or making jewelry. No, you know what a hobby is? A hobby is something that gets you out of your current circumstance. So, for example, if you are isolated in your home, contact a church and ask to be visited. Ask for the person who visits you to take you to church. Get out. Having a hobby just means changing what you're doing now and getting something different, doing something different. So I never understood when people would say, get a hobby when I was, in the hospitals and the recovery. I'm like, well, and I would do it. I would do jewelry. I'd learn to crochet. But it still was me isolated. And so I didn't understand until I started living again, until I started letting the ugliness out that, get a hobby. Make friends, go get coffee, have dinner, call a church, volunteer, hobbies, but with other people involved in those hobbies. So I'm very proud of you guys. And I just want you to know, if no one's told you today, you matter. I'm proud of you and I love you. Take care.